December 27th, 2025. Gelsenkirchen, Germany. 7:44 in the morning. A cleaning woman lets herself in through the service entrance, the way she has every weekday morning for 16 years. She fills the kettle. She waits for it to boil. She knows the layout of this building better than most of the people who work in it. Which door sticks, which light flickers, which floor the vacuum cord will not quite reach. It is a Saturday. Saturdays are quiet. She starts, as she always starts, with the offices upstairs. At 7:45, she comes back down to run the vacuum along the corridor outside the vault. The vault door is open, not wide, about 15 centimeters. In 16 years, this has never happened once. She walks toward it. She puts her hand flat against the steel and pushes, and the great door swings inward without resistance, the way a door swings when nothing is holding it. The lights inside are on. Along both walls, 214 safety deposit compartments hang open on their hinges. Velvet pouches and loose paper lie across the floor. And in the back wall of the vault, the wall no one is ever supposed to be able to reach, there is a circular hole, cut clean through 60 centimeters of reinforced concrete, wide enough for a grown man to climb through. She does not scream, she does not run. She sits down on the floor of the vault, and for almost 20 minutes, she does not get up. 60 centimeters of poured concrete and steel mesh, drilled through from the other side. Not one alarm sounded. Not one camera recorded it. Not one person in Gelsenkirchen heard the drill. 3 questions hang in that room with her. How do you cut a hole through a bank vault by hand? How long were they inside without anyone knowing? And how does a wall this thick, in a country this careful, make no sound at all? To answer any of it, you have to understand that there is no suspect in this story. Not yet. Maybe not ever. The people who made that hole left nothing behind but the hole itself. No fingerprint, no footprint, no strand of hair, no flake of skin, no face on any lens. Everything they touched, they cleaned. Everything they used, they carried out. What investigators would eventually chase was not a man, but an absence. A shape defined entirely by the things that were missing. Within the German press, they became known simply as the Phantoms. The case would land on the desk of Senior Detective Inspector Werner Schultz, a 28-year veteran of organized crime investigations, a man who had closed cases that other officers had given up on. Hold on to him. He is the best the German state has. Remember later that he never gets close. Because the Phantoms were not the only thing in that building that had been carefully constructed. So had the vault. So had the 214 boxes inside it. Boxes that belonged, according to the branch's own records, to some of the wealthiest families in the Ruhr. Keep that detail. It looks, for now, like a way of telling you how much money was at stake. It is not. Every heist has a lock. This one had 2, and neither of them was the vault door. The first was a calendar. In the Federal Republic of Germany, the 24th, 25th, and 26th of December are federal holidays. The banks close. The offices close. The streets of the Ruhr, which are never empty, come as close to empty as they ever come, and they stay that way for 3 days. The Sparkasse network is the largest in Europe. 370 individual savings banks, 50,000 cash machines, an account held by 1 German in 3. And on the night of December 24th, 95% of those branches contain no human being at all. For 72 hours, the buildings simply sit there in the dark. The entire system is watched from a single monitoring center in Frankfurt, where alarm feeds from all 370 banks arrive at once and are read not by people, but by an algorithm. On Christmas Eve, there is exactly one thing watching all of those banks. It is a piece of software, and it has never once been taught to recognize a sound coming from outside a wall. At the branch in Gelsenkirchen, the last employee locks up at 6 in the evening on the 24th. The first employee returns at 6:30 on the morning of the 27th. 60 hours of silence. The window was exactly long enough. The second lock was older. It had not been touched since 1962. The building went up that year. 4 stories of reinforced concrete, the standard construction of the post-war Ruhr. The architects placed the vault at the dead center of the structure, surrounded on 3 sides by Sparkasse offices, and on the 4th by an adjoining retail unit, which in 1962 was a barber shop. They specified the concrete of their era, 60 centimeters of it, poured around a steel mesh skeleton. For 1962, that specification was correct. 3 sides of that vault were wired against everything the architects could imagine: motion, vibration, sound. The 4th wall, the one facing the shop next door, had none of it. No motion sensor, no seismic detector, no acoustic monitoring of any kind. The reasoning had been simple and, for its time, sound. The retail side faced a public street. Public streets had foot traffic. Foot traffic had witnesses. Why wire a wall that the whole world could see? The threat model assumed the world of 1962. It was never revised. Klaus Reichmann, director of security for the Sparkasse Finanzgruppe, would put it plainly to Der Spiegel in January 2026. The wall had been built to 1962 standards, and no one had ever gone back to update the threat model. The architects had done everything right for the tools of their own century. What they could not have pictured was a diamond core drill available at any industrial supplier in Europe. And what none of them could have pictured was the last, quiet fact that turned an unwired wall into a doorway. The storefront next door, the old barber shop on Halbstrasse, was available to rent. The vault was not broken open on Christmas Eve. It was broken open on a Thursday in November, with a pen. November 6th, 2025. A man in a plain dark suit walks into a real estate office in a town 20 minutes south of Gelsenkirchen. He gives his name as Marcus Wagner. He lays a business card on the desk. Wagner Logistic GmbH, Frankfurt. His logistics firm, he explains, needs a temporary archive facility, 6 months, while it relocates its Frankfurt warehouse. He would like the vacant unit on Halbstrasse. Every piece of the man is verifiable, and every piece is false. Wagner Logistic GmbH is a real company. It was registered in the Czech Republic on October 2nd, 2025, 5 weeks before this meeting. It has a registered address. It has a registered director, one Marcus Wagner, and the real Marcus Wagner has been dead since 2019. The Czech business registry never updated the record, and so a dead man's name went on doing business, renting property, signing papers, for 6 years after he stopped breathing. The phantom pays in cash. Deposit plus 3 months rent, 1,200 euros a month, 3,600 euros counted out across the counter. And here is the moment the vault falls. Not when the drill turns on. Here, the agent signs the lease. He does not confirm that Wagner Logistic has ever filed a tax return. He does not confirm that the Frankfurt office exists. He does not make the single phone call that would have ended the entire operation before it owned a key. He shakes a dead man's hand, and the wall the bank had trusted for 63 years is already open. Everything after this is just concrete. The keys change hands on November 10th. From here, everything accelerates. For 6 weeks, unmarked white vans pull up to the rear loading bay on Halbstrasse and deliver crates. The neighbors watch them come. The flower shop, the dental practice, the Turkish bakery 3 doors down. They see the boxes. They believe exactly what they were told to believe. An archive company is moving in. Nothing in any of those crates is archive material. But here is the part that would make the case so difficult to prosecute. Nothing in them is stolen either. The lease is genuine. The equipment was bought, not taken. There is no forgery on any document a court could point to. No break-in anywhere in the chain. Every component of the largest bank robbery in post-war German history passed through an ordinary, legal, German commercial transaction. What the crates contained was precision engineering from Hilti, the firm out of Liechtenstein, whose drills bore through concrete on construction sites across Europe. The centerpiece sat under a tarp in the middle of the shop floor by mid-December. A Hilti DD350CA diamond core drill, a 60-centimeter bit, water-cooled, hydraulically mounted, retail price around 18,000 euros. The drill would later be traced to an equipment auction in Zagreb in July 2024. The buyer was a Hungarian construction firm that dissolved 3 months after the sale. Its registered director was, like Marcus Wagner, a name attached to no living person. Around the drill lay the rest of the inventory, and each piece answered a specific way the operation could fail. A portable generator, because a crew that plugged into the shop's own meter would leave a spike in the grid record that any investigator could read. An industrial wet vacuum, because 60 centimeters of drilled concrete produces a slurry that would otherwise pool across the floor and leave a print of the whole job. A laser distance meter, because a bit that drifted even slightly offline would surface somewhere blind, inside a supporting column instead of the vault, and turn 26 hours of work into a dead end in the dark. And a hydraulic silencing jacket, lined with mass-loaded vinyl foam, because the concrete was never the real problem. The sound was, a diamond core drill grinding through reinforced concrete produces between 95 and 110 decibels, continuously, for 12 to 14 hours. That is the noise of a chainsaw held 2 meters from your ear and never switched off, running through an entire working day. There is no jacket in the world that makes it silent. So the crew did not try to silence it. They did something stranger. They read the paperwork of the city itself. They pulled the construction permits Gelsenkirchen had issued for December, and they found that 2 streets over, a renovation had been scheduled straight through the holiday. On another street, a water main was being replaced, and on the night of December 24th, every fireworks shop in Germany would sell its stock to the public, and the whole country would spend the evening detonating it in the streets. The drill they were about to run would not sound like a crime. It would sound like Christmas, ordinary, expected, unremarked. By December 23rd, the equipment is positioned, the job is rehearsed, the shop on Halbstrasse goes quiet. The night before the drilling begins, there is nothing left to do but wait for the country to fall asleep. December 24th, 2025. 9 hours and 12 minutes past noon, the drill turns on. For the first 3 hours, the bit eats slowly through the outer 20 centimeters of the wall. 5 men work the room. 2 watch the laser meter, holding the line true. 2 run the water and the vacuum, pulling the slurry away as fast as the drill makes it. The 5th sits apart with a laptop, watching the Sparkasse alarm feed from Frankfurt. The feed shows nothing. It will keep showing nothing. The algorithms in Frankfurt were built to catch a breach from inside the vault. A door, a sensor, a broken beam. They were never built to hear a machine chewing at the wall from the wrong side of the concrete. By 6 in the morning on Christmas Day, the drill has passed 25 centimeters and reached the steel. For the next 8 hours, the crew sets the drill aside and cuts the reinforcing bars by hand, with a torch, rod by rod. By 11 that night, 26 hours into the job, the bit breaks through the inner face of the vault wall. The hole is 60 centimeters across, just wide enough for a man. And then, in the 26th hour, the operation nearly ends. There is a single passive temperature sensor mounted near the ceiling of the vault. Not an alarm, a thermometer, really, feeding a number back to Frankfurt. When the first hole opens and the shop air bleeds into the sealed room, the vault temperature moves, and the number changes, and the number is transmitted. In Frankfurt, on a wall of screens no one is standing in front of, a single line of data updates. A reading arrives that does not match the vault's baseline. For a moment, and it is only data, so the moment is measured in whatever a moment is to a machine. The reading sits in the system unclassified, flagged or not flagged, escalated or ignored. There is no operator on duty to look. There is only the algorithm deciding. It decides that 18 degrees is an HVAC fluctuation. It does not raise the flag. The line of data scrolls up the screen and off the top of it, and the last thing standing between the crew and a national manhunt goes quietly back to sleep. At midnight on the 26th, the first man climbs through the hole. 22 hours in the vault. They open the working cash drawer first. Roughly 8 million euros in mixed notes, stacked and banded for the post-holiday reopening, and move it through the hole into canvas duffel bags. Then they start on the boxes, 214 of them. Each is lifted from its socket with a small hydraulic press, brought in through the hole on a wheeled cart, quieter than the drill had ever been. Each box takes about 5 minutes, and out of the boxes comes the private wealth of the Ruhr. Gold ingots, stamped with the seals of foundries that closed before the war. Diamonds folded into squares of black velvet. American dollars in bundles too thick to have ever crossed a German tax form. Bonds, share certificates, photographs, letters, wills. One box, its owner would describe it, weeks later and without a name, to a Frankfurt newspaper, held a Patek Philippe wristwatch, made in 1947, a bound stack of personal letters from the owner's late grandfather, and roughly $400,000 in cash. The watch would be recovered 3 months later in an Antwerp pawn shop and returned. The cash would not, the letters would not. Somewhere in the 22nd hour, this stops being a story about money. It becomes a story about what a man's grandfather wrote to him, carried out of a vault in a duffel bag by people who will never read it and never cared to. At 11:30 on the night of the 26th, the crew is finished. At 2 in the morning on the 27th, they disassemble the drill, pack the shop on Halbstrasse to bare walls, and leave in 3 separate vehicles. 48 hours and 50 minutes after the bit first touched the wall, the phantoms are gone. 5.5 hours later, a cleaning woman puts her hand on a vault door that will not stay shut. By the end of December 27th, every major news organization in Germany is running the same story, the largest nonviolent bank robbery in the country's post-war history. Werner Schultz and his team do what any police force in Europe would do. They examine the storefront, the vault, the hole, and the concrete slurry the crew dumped in a public skip behind the bakery. They find no fingerprints, no DNA, no footprints. The internal CCTV server has been spoofed remotely, then destroyed by hand on the way out. They trace a fragment of the drill bit back to the Zagreb auction, and the trail dies at the phantom Hungarian firm. They interview the landlord, who remembers an average-looking German man in his 40s, cash-paying, polite, a description that, Schultz noted to build, fit roughly 14 million Germans. They line the operation up against the Pink Panthers, the loose Serbian and Montenegrin network behind the most surgical heists in modern European history. The technique matches, the discipline matches. They cannot prove a single thread of connection. But the hardest fact of the case is not the missing fingerprints. 214 boxes were emptied. Only 47 owners ever came forward to file a claim. The other 167 said nothing at all. Not to the police, not to the press, not to the insurers. They absorbed the loss in total silence and asked for none of it back. Here is where the wealthiest families in the Ruhr stop being a measure of the prize. A Frankfurt lawyer, speaking to Der Spiegel without a name attached, explained it in a single sentence. Many of his clients would rather lose the contents of their boxes than explain what those contents were. The undeclared dollars, the gold with no receipt, the things that could only be kept in a place with no record and no camera. The crew had not simply chosen a wall that could not defend itself. They had chosen victims who could not afford to report the crime. The lawyer's last words on the matter were the coldest in the entire case. The thieves understood this perfectly. The vault on the unwired side had been the target, but the silence had been the plan. You cannot be caught robbing people who will never admit they were robbed. The money never surfaced. Not one gold ingot has appeared on any European bullion exchange. Not one of the diamonds on any cut stone register. Not one bond at any clearinghouse. The haul either sits intact wherever the crew put it, or it moved through a fencing network the BKA has never been able to name. The reported figure of 30 million euros is, by every independent estimate, low. Some run it as high as 80. At his press conference on January 8, 2026, Werner Schultz stood in front of the German press and said what a 28-year veteran almost never says aloud. He had evidence of professional planning, professional execution, professional cleanup. He had no suspects. He had no leads. But if the phantoms rewrote nothing else, they rewrote the rules. One day after Schultz spoke, the Sparkasse Finanzgruppe convened an emergency security review in Berlin. By the end of February, BaFin, the federal banking regulator, had issued a binding directive to every commercial bank in the country. 5 requirements, every one of them written because of Gelsenkirchen Bur. Live human monitoring inside every branch through the Christmas closure. Mandatory inspection of any building within 50 meters of a vault before a lease is signed. CCTV servers physically cut off from external networks. Seismic and acoustic sensors mounted inside every face of every vault wall, including the walls that face the street. And the Frankfurt Monitoring Center, staffed by living operators, 24 hours a day, holidays included. Cost to the German banking sector, roughly 185 million euros. Testifying before the Bundestag that March, Klaus Reichmann reduced 63 years of institutional confidence to 7 words. For 63 years, they had believed their walls were enough. They had been wrong. By October 2026, the European Central Bank had issued a parallel advisory, recommending the same 5 protocols across the Eurozone. One operation, run over a single Christmas weekend by people no one can name, had within 12 months rewritten the security playbook for roughly 7,000 banks across the European Union. And a small human thing survived all of it. The Patek Philippe came home from that Antwerp pawn shop and went back on its owner's wrist. The $400,000 did not. The grandfather's letters did not. The thieves had returned the thing that had a price and kept the things that did not. The branch reopened on April 12, 2026. The back wall is new, 90 centimeters of reinforced concrete now, wrapped in carbon fiber mesh, wired on every side with the seismic sensors the 1962 architects were never asked to imagine. The storefront on Halbstrasse, the old barber shop where the drill once sat under a tarp, belongs to the Sparkasse itself now. They turned it into a cafe. It is open to the street, warm, ordinary, the kind of place where people buy coffee and never think about the wall behind the counter. The cameras inside it run 24 hours a day. They point, more or less, at the exact spot where a hydraulic drill once bored toward the vault, and they will keep pointing at it forever. At nothing, at an empty room where the crime has already happened and will never happen again. As of June 2026, the case is unsolved. Under German law, the statute of limitations on aggravated theft runs 30 years, which means the file stays open until December 2055. The BKA's investigation, Operation Weihnachtsfrieden, Christmas Peace, has a standing budget of 4.2 million euros, 24 assigned federal agents, and not one active suspect. The cleaning woman went back to work. Her name is Brigitte Holtzmann. She is 58 years old, and she had cleaned that branch every weekday morning for 16 years before the morning the vault door would not stay shut. She told a newspaper, later, exactly what she thought in the first second, that somebody had simply forgotten to close the door. Then she saw the wall, and she sat down on the floor. Eventually, she stood up. The manager was called. The police were called. The wall was rebuilt thicker than any wall in the building. Everything in that room was replaced, restored, or explained. Everything except the people who made the hole. They did not fire a shot. They did not raise their voice. They did not touch a single employee. They rented a room, read the city's paperwork, and drilled through a wall while a nation set off fireworks. And a third of the people they robbed chose never to say a word. Which leaves the one question the 90-cent cafe cameras will never answer. The question 167 silent owners spent a great deal of money never to be asked. If what was taken was never supposed to exist, if the gold had no receipt, and the dollars had no form, and the truth stayed locked in a box, precisely so that no one would ever have to account for it, then who, exactly, was robbed?